Good morning. Welcome to the Development Review Committee meeting of December 9th, 2022. As a reminder, the DRC, the Development Review Committee, is an administrative board,
Recording in progress.
Thank you, Joe. And there's no decision made today. There's no approvals given today. This is just for an applicant, their first step into the development process of the city. And staff is here to give technical comments, technical issues that are raised by anything that's been a policy adopted by the commission. So whether it be the comprehensive plan, the zoning code, the city code, we raise those issues as staff. There's some different disciplines here, as you'll hear from each and every one of us. And as a reminder, there's not, the zoning code specifies that public comment is not intended to be solicited. However, the city commission adopted a resolution 2021-232 that provides a way for written comments from the public. But however, we did not receive any e-comments. We did not receive any emails for this agenda item today. So with that, we're going to start with our one and only item, which is DRC-22-11-0022. I can have applicant present something. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. Thank you for your time this morning. My name is Mike Sardinas. I'm with the University of Miami, the University Architect, 1535 Levante. The project that we present to you today here is for part of the athletics program. This is a specific program for the football, what's called the Football Operations Center. And the building has basically three components. It's the main football operations building. It's 7 stories. We have an 8-story garage connected to a bridge and a dining component on the ground floor. And so with that, I'm going to hand this over to Alejandro Gonzalez from Arquitectónica to walk you through a little bit through the project and details. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Excited to be here to share this with you all and listen to what you have to say. You know, we're here to work together, so we're excited. So as Mike already introduced, my name is Alejandro Gonzalez, design principal at Arquitectónica. And we'll start with the overall site. I've condensed this presentation to kind of a very high level overview. If you all would like me to get into more details as it relates to the internal workings of the building, we could certainly do that. That's in an appendix. But for the most part, I'm going to be talking about the building, how it relates to the campus, and what our kind of aspirational goals were with this project. So stating that, as you all know, the campus, this is the University of Miami campus here in red. This is the, let's say, the core of the overall campus. As you know, in this area here, and everybody can see my mouse, right? This is primarily the academic side of the campus. Student life is focused towards the center here. You can see Lakeside Village, the future of Centennial Village, and the student center and student support centers in this area. And then as we move west on the campus, this is primarily the athletic side of the campus. What's interesting about this project as well is there is a lot of offsite campus that extends into the city of Coral Gables, just to the west of San Amaro, here on the left side of this page. And there's offsite campus here where students are actually traversing, and there's a primary kind of pedestrian student connection that comes along this way and then leads students into the heart of the campus over here. So for us, the location of the building was unique because, one, it's fronting the canal, which is a great opportunity. It's kind of in between a series of other components. There's athletic buildings here, the Watsco, the indoor practice field, just to the west side of the canal. It's also neighbored by the Lunar Center, which you're all familiar with here. That's off of Ponce de Leon, and then future home of Centennial and future home of Theater Arts. So it's a very unique location, and it's a primary thoroughfare between kind of offsite campus living and bringing those students to the campus. So for us, it was an opportunity to create this kind of visual connection or a gateway, not just between the athletic side and this building, but also something that felt welcoming to the students and pedestrians. You know, over time, we're trying to make the building or the campus as pedestrian friendly as possible. And this is another way of doing that and kind of emphasizing that connectivity. So the other thing you'll note is that we are creating a physical connection back to the indoor practice field. That's something that is critically important for this project to function. So, being able for the student athletes, the football players to be able to directly connect to indoor practice football and the outdoor fields is something that's necessary for a building like this to work. Now, traditionally, a building like this, you might find on another campus that has, a whole lot of space, would be a 1-story or 2-story structure that's very kind of inward facing. A lot of the things that do happen in this building are very private. We had the unique opportunity and kind of the emphasis of what if we take this building type and actually go vertical with it, create something that doesn't take up as much space, allows the campus to remain as green as possible, and somehow is able to kind of express what's happening inside of the building while still creating a sense of privacy from that public realm that's on the ground floor. So here you can see the building in context. As you know, it's the football admin building, which is this component here, and the adjacent and connected parking facility and athletic dining. And for us, this really is a single project that straddles that thoroughfare and creates that gateway. And you're going to see some of that in some of the other imagery I'm going to show you. You can see in terms of scale and proportion, it is very similar to the neighboring buildings. It's very similar in height to Lennar. You'll notice as well that there was an emphasis from our team to create a building that, again, was connecting the inside uses with the outdoor spaces, allowing light to come in, but also protecting the interior of the building from heat gain, from rain, etc. So you'll see that this building sits primarily on Dickinson off of Ponce de Leon. So that leads into the site. It's going to be connecting to this future plaza that is going to be an arrival for and drop off for Centennial Village. It's also going to provide access to the Wellness Center and the home for theater arts in the future that you can see in this area. This is being treated as a plaza and a drop-off space. Part of the garage will also help in making that space covered and protected from the elements. And you can see compositionally how the building really does reinforce that pedestrian connection that I keep referring to. So students coming from this portion of the offsite student housing have this direct line of access and connection. From Dickinson Drive, another goal that we had for the project was, while the building is set into the campus, we did want to make the building feel like it had a presence on Ponce de Leon. So you can see the building has a very dynamic character to it. It's kind of leaning over and creating a sense of arrival all the way back from the entry of Dickinson Drive off of Ponce de Leon. And you can see a lot of those key components that we're talking about. That open terrace that looks back towards the practice fields, that looks to the water beyond the city of Coral Gables, that strong pedestrian connection and the openness that we're going for on the ground plane to really draw people into this project and make it very pedestrian friendly at that public realm. This is another view of that pedestrian connection. You'll see how we're using the landscape, this change of elevation that we have to do based on, as we all know, the updated FEMA maps that are rising. A lot of the projects that we've done on campus recently are addressing this in a proactive way. So there is a slight change of grade that we're taking advantage and creating these, steps that lead into this promenade. You could see that to the left side, we'll have the public facing entry of the football ops building with a lobby that's very open and connected to that view. That lobby will be kind of the home for football. You'll see a lot of the history of the football team and the success it's had in the past and its ambitions moving forward. The reality is, the University of Miami is trying to kind of catch up with the balance of the schools nationwide to really create a world-class facility. So a lot of the things that are being housed in this building are things that the university really needs to actually become kind of competitive in the landscape of football. To the other side of that promenade, you'll notice that we have the dining hall and that access to the vertical connection that's very visible and open. So this is where all student athletes for the entirety of the University of Miami will come. This will be open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it's open all day. It's not a dead space. It's going to be very active. So throughout the day, you're going to have activity on both sides of this promenade. It's going to create a space that could be used for other functions, potentially on other days, because it's an outdoor covered space. And as we know, that's a commodity within the campus and within the city of Coral Gables to create spaces, outdoor spaces like this. As we also mentioned, the garage itself does have a physical connection. So while we are creating this kind of intersection of this building, and you can see the movement that we're showing and how these pieces kind of interlock and interrelate to another, not only does it help us create that pedestrian thoroughfare on the ground, but it also helps us create this elevated deck, which is a private connection for athletes and staff to be able to connect to that football building. While the building is addressing Dickinson, which is, primarily the front side of the building, we're also wanting to treat the canal side in a very similar way and take advantage of that waterfront, which we think is a unique opportunity. So to the right of the page here, you'll see this pedestrian connection enclosed bridge that connects the student athlete, the football players, directly to the indoor practice field. That is a private connection between their football building and their facilities on the other side of the canal. That will only be used by football players and staff. But again, you can see some of that visual connection that I've been describing. The vertical circulation is something that we're expressing along the facade and taking opportunities to bring light into the building while still kind of balancing that with some more solid areas that allow us to have some of those more inward facing spaces that are required as part of the programming here. So it's a balance of those. And then on the ground level, you can see how we're extending some of those player recreation spaces to the exterior to create outdoor dining and lounging opportunities directly on the waterfront. You'll notice here as well how some of these balconies and terraces, again, provide those opportunities to visually connect back to the existing facilities, such as the outdoor fields, Cobb Stadium, the indoor practice field, et cetera. And then lastly, as part of these renderings, we're showing you the other end of the project, which, equally important, is facing the plaza, which is going to open up to that portion of the campus that's a bit more connected to different types of buildings. So here you can see the Wellness Center. You'll notice here that we have vertical circulation that gets us in and out of the parking facility with clear visibility and direct connections. Something else that we thought was important was, could we potentially introduce some programming at the base of this building that activates it, not just for the student athletes, but for the balance of the campus? You'll see here along the waterfront and at this location, we have been able to also introduce a small little cafe, this what we call the Ventanita, which will be able to serve coffee and provide access and additional active uses at that ground level where we can. Off of Dickinson, we have direct entry before arriving to the plaza into our parking facility, which houses about 568 vehicles on 8 levels. The football building is a 7-story building. Getting into a little bit more of the specifics on the site plan and just kind of walking through that a little bit in more detail. So as I've described, this is Dickinson. This is really the only street where we have access to service this building and vehicle access. What we're doing is we're kind of piggybacking on the fact that we've got just to plan left or plan west, which is really kind of southwest corner of this project. We have the loading and kind of back of house area and service and mechanical spaces for the Lennar building. We are using that to bring in trucks to be able to provide our loading area directly for the football operations building. As I mentioned to you before, there's a strong emphasis on this connectivity and creating this outdoor space. It's a very open and generous paseo. It's over 40 feet tall and about 40 feet wide. So this is a kind of grand scale within the campus. Here at the corner, we have that completely open and visible public lobby which is going to create that visual connection between the football program and the students that are going to be coming through here every day. As you can see in the corner, we've got a very open vertical circulation core that's going to be glazed with visibility. And then also the balance of this is all glazing that allows views into the dining hall, which I described is on the opposite side of the paseo. All of this is flush. We gently rise up to this area and then we slope up to this area based on the new FEMA flood requirements. As I mentioned before, on the north side, or plan north, excuse me, of this project, we've got an extension of those interior spaces to the outside. We've got an extension of the dining hall to the canal. We're set back so that we have enough space for the balance of the canal going into the water. Some of this might be a little deceiving. It looks like there's a big green space, but really that's the embankment of the actual waterway. So we're taking advantage of that and creating these outdoor spaces that are extensions of the functions that are occurring on the interior. This is that vertical core that I showed you in that rear rendering that connects you back to the indoor practice field and the outdoor practice field. So players cross this bridge and go directly into the locker rooms, which have to exist here, or up into the meeting rooms where they prep and study film, et cetera, and prepare for games. The balance of this on this side, there's a speed ramp here. So we're trying to use maximum utilization of that ground floor for public uses. The only other things that we have on the ground floor are the service areas that are required to be here. So we've got a loading dock that directly feeds into this kitchen, which is a necessity. Our trash and recycling, all of that is completely concealed and inside of the building. And then we've got direct access to the parking in and out, and all of our other utilities along this side, with the exception of the ventanita that we thought was a nice way of activating that waterfront. You know, as people come in and out of the garage, they've got the opportunity to use that space as well. And again, connecting back to the wellness, all of this being expressed as a plaza. So I feel like I've been talking for a long time. I can stop here and then open it up for questions, or I can continue to get into more specifics in the plans or any zoning information. Up to you all.
I think for the benefit of the public, if you could go through not each room, but generally what's on each floor, just so people understand what the uses are that are being proposed.
Absolutely. I'm happy to do that. So I'll just quickly show this slide. This is where we sit within the balance of the campus. Obviously, these are the heights. We are within the heights that are allowed. So this diagram is basically saying, look, we're in compliance with all of that. We've included some elevations in the submission, which are, you know, a lot of you have seen. So I won't go through these in detail. I've explained that in the perspectives. But just to talk a little bit about the building and how the building functions. This is the public side of the building. This is kind of the more player, let's say, focus side of the building where they connect to some of those uses and practice, et cetera. So on the ground floor, players are able to arrive if they're coming by foot, if they're on campus, if they're in a class, they're able to arrive at this level. They've got direct access to their locker room, which is the first place they go. If the public enters the space, they have the ability to go in a different direction. So those two paths never really cross. You've got the private side of this building, which is for the most part how this building functions. And then there's a few spaces that are a little bit more kind of public facing, media oriented, et cetera. And all of that works off of this lobby. So on the ground level, we've got the locker rooms, we've got the shower areas, some plunge pools in this area, restroom facilities. This is where all the equipment that they need on that ground floor is kept. So as they're getting ready to go out to practice, they're picking up their equipment, or when they're coming back, they're dropping off their equipment. All their equipment is serviced in this area. The importance of this is always as well to be able to have direct access to the loading, because as they're making their way to games, this is where all of this stuff is making its way onto the truck and making its way to the stadium. So as players go from the locker rooms to the indoor practice field and the outdoor fields, they've got access to this hydration zone. So there's kind of like what we call here a Gatorade zone, but it's really a hydration station so that players are getting the adequate nutrients that they need as they're coming in and out. This vertical core over here serves the balance of the building and connects mainly the players and staff. This elevator over here is on the public side of the building. On the On this kind of mezzanine level, what we've got is access to this mezzanine space. There's a space here called the Hurricane Room. This is primarily like for media and recruiting. So this is like a 360 experience where when they're bringing in players and trying to get them hyped up and wanting to join the program, this is like a showcase of the university, their heritage, you know, just kind of getting them interested in the program. And then they continue to tour these recruits to the balance of the building. The other functions on this level are an extension of some of the storage and service spaces that we need for the hydrotherapy that sits one level above this. Again, this is a mechanical mezzanine for the most part. The next level up, which is level 3, this is where we have sports science and rehab. So physical therapy, rehab, all of that is happening on this level. Players have direct access, you know, if they're coming off the field or going to the fields to take these escalators or elevators up to this level where they're getting treatment. They've got hydrotherapy as well, and they have a spa. We were having some conversations earlier today. You know, these days, these facilities are kind of world-class, and it's no different than going to like a 5-star spa. The amount of things that these players need to be able to perform, it's changing. So all of that's happening on this level. Continuing up on the player side, if you take the escalators up, this takes us to the level where we have all of our meeting rooms. This is where they prepare and study film, etc. So players are coming down from that level up to here, and this is where they're doing the bulk of their studying indoors. In addition to those spaces, they've got a simulation room, which is kind of like an indoor small field, a little bit bigger than this space that we see here, where they're going to have video and they're actually able to watch video and kind of line up and prepare. Very kind of state-of-the-art space. This is the level that actually connects directly to the parking facility. So players are actually able to, if they're parking here, or staff, coaches, etc., they're able to cross at this level and enter the building and go up or down depending on where they're headed. This is also where we have a recruiting lounge, and we're using that sim room for double duty and also that outdoor space. So that outdoor space is an extension of the sim room to the outdoor area. So if they want to host something here for recruit or a large recruiting function or something like that, all of that would occur on this floor. As we make our way up, now we're getting to the more staff and coaching portion of the building. For the most part, this is staff and coaching locker rooms and restroom facilities. There's also some additional office space for some of the components that support the functions for the football operations. And then lastly, on the level 6 is where you have all the coaches' offices and additional kind of open office space for the folks that do support those coaches. So you can see here, the perimeter is kind of lined with those coaches' offices. There's a terrace that looks back towards the fields. This is the head coach's office and all of the other coaches on this level. As we move up, lastly, to the rooftop, as we mentioned before, the rooftop's a unique opportunity here in the city of Coral Gables, also, the city of Miami, just to be able to take advantage of our weather and to be able to kind of capitalize on these views that we have back to the city. So creating an indoor and outdoor space that work in tandem and feel really open and connected. You can see here, this is really player focused. They've got an indoor kind of space here that's called a multi-purpose studio that might double up as a basketball court. They've got a gaming room. They've got a simulator, pool tables, all the things that these players need to kind of take their mind off of the game, relax, and just kind of sit back and take it easy. And all of that extends to the outdoor space where we have the same kind of outdoor lounging and open areas as well outside. That is the entirety of the football building. Now moving over to the garage or parking structure, we've got on that ground floor, as I mentioned before, this is where we have the athletic dining for the entirety of the campus. And you can see that the bulk of all of this is all of this area here has direct visibility to the inside, taking advantage of that waterfront, opening up to the Paseo, and then having a nice presence on Dickinson Drive. It opens up, it's got two main connections for circulation, one that's conveniently located here to service the wellness center and this kind of planned east part of the campus, and then one on the southwest corner over here that's directly across from the lobby and also provides easy access to Watsco, to that pedestrian connection that we mentioned that's so important. Above that, we've got a pretty traditional garage. It's a sloped parked garage that you can see that makes its way up. So it's about 8 stories and it's got just under 600 vehicles, about 568. These are some sections of the building. And I think that is comprehensive overview of the project.
Yes, thank you. If that concludes presentation, I'll just have staff start. I'll start with Juan, city architect.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, let me just congratulate you on a beautiful building, beautiful presentation. You know, the drawings are really to a point where we can understand. We've had several meetings with you, and I think it's developed in a positive way. I think you've opened up a lot of the building and you've addressed some of the comments that we've discussed. So thank you for doing that. I have some comments that I'd like you also to consider moving forward, because after this, as you know, we're going to go to Board of Architects, and there's always some basic requirements that you need to know that you need to bring to that meeting moving forward. So my first comment is really a large scale comment, which addresses the campus. I don't see a master site plan that shows your proposed building with the other projects that we have online right now, which number one is going to be on the north side of this site, the Siskovich residential large scale development that's underway. And also on the, I believe it's on the east side of the property, the Ronnie Mateo building. So I think you need to prepare a drawing that shows the integration of your building with these other two projects that are set in stone already, and how your project connects to these projects on an urban scale. I think that's very important. And I think it's necessity that we need to see that master site plan and see those physical functions and activities and how they overlap and interrelate. So please consider something to that effect that's going to be important for the board to look at. And I'll come back to that with my final comment, but I'll start with the drawings. One of the concerns is the trash area or the service area that you have on the south side of the building. As you drive on Dickinson and you make kind of the subtle right-hand turn, you're looking directly at that service area. So I don't know if there's a way to screen that a little more, if maybe to minimize that radius there. I know you got trucks backing in and out of there, but I'm concerned that that's a sight line, and I need you to review that a little further. Also, a consideration is on sheet A102, you have what appears to be the cutout in the curb for the buses. I'm assuming that's the loading of the players for game day. That's always a fun activity, and a lot of people come to see that. Just wondering if there's been a consideration of that function happening on the north side where you have the turnabout. I don't know if the buses can make that radius, but I thought it's a great open area covered, and it would kind of give us more of a forecourt in front of the building. I just feel that's really tight there. You know, you have a vertical 6-story building 10 feet away from the sidewalk, and then you're going to introduce this function of the buses and the players loading and the public coming to see it, and the kids on campus trying to, you know, interact that and celebrate and whatever it is they do when that function occurs. So I think it's a fun activity, and I just think that location may be too tight for that. So that's a consideration. The next comment is on the drawings, all the floor plans from the first floor, I guess, to the 7th floor. You have again, the big paseo, which is a very important feature of the building, I think is critical. I notice on the north side of the south building, it's basically a solid facade. And you have only openings and glazing on the south side of the parking structure where the dining hall is. So just wondering if there's any idea or any further development. I know you have the wall plaques or something going on in that wall where there's a solid wall necessity, but maybe the stairwell on the west side, you may want to introduce some storefront or something just to break up that large mass. Again, it's a large wall, or I guess celebrate that function more, or do something that's gonna give us something more attractive than just a solid wall with some plaques. I don't know. I don't know if that's, I don't know what the details are yet. I don't think you know what the details are yet, but I think it's a big consideration. It's a very important space. It's a thoroughfare. It's going to be heavily traveled. And I think we really need to focus on that solidity a little bit and see if we can open it up. Going up to the roof plan, I know you show some kind of trellis feature up there. Again, try to identify the materials, maybe come up with some conceptual details to explain to the board what the intent is. Also, I don't see any locations for equipment. I don't know if the roof is going to be the equipment farm for the HVAC units. No?
No.
Okay. And I don't see any stair penetrating the roof level either. Are you going to have any?
Since there's no equipment up there, we won't need.
You're
to
not going to need to do that. Okay.
If we end up needing wells, there'd be wells.
Okay. All right. And then going to the north side of the north building, again, the covered drop-off area. I know you mentioned something about ventanita, and I think we've had this discussion before that to me, the north side of the parking structure is very, very prominent based on the Siskovich project that's happening on the north side. And I think we really need to activate that. I see the intent. You've done a couple things that are helping that, but there's no porosity. It's just materiality you're changing. I don't see any openings.
But I'll make just, if you'd like to talk about that or.
No, I'm just going to I don't want to delay the meeting because this is technical more than I hate to get into design issues, but
Sure.
that's what we do at BOA. So
Yep.
I'm just giving you my thoughts, and then you take it from there and you guys assess it and develop a strategy if you think it's applicable or not.
Thank you.
If you can enlarge your building sections, they're great. I think they show a lot of interesting things on the building, but it's such a small scale, it's hard to read. So I would probably double the scale of the sections to try to emphasize the three-dimensional aspects of the building. I think it's great what you're doing. And then, provide, if you can provide a typical wall section that shows the structural system, the panels. I know we talked initially about ACM panels. Now it looks like it's a precast system. So that's going to be a question that's going to come up in the board in terms of materiality and how you're doing this.
Okay.
Also provide us any kind of details for any architectural features, maybe the storefront system, the railings, things of that nature that are going to be atypical. The board is going to question you on those elements. So if you could get ahead of that, that'd be great. You need to submit a material board with all the finishes. I think we've discussed that previously. And also, I don't see any indication of exterior lighting or what you're doing with the uplighting or how you're entertaining that, but I know you're going to be doing that. And that's something that's come up on the board too, is a lot of the buildings that are being developed in today's world have a lot of exterior lighting, and the board needs to understand what the concept is and maybe provide, if you can, a nighttime rendering that shows the intent of what you're trying to do with this building at night. Sure. If it's a feature. If a lot of buildings don't have it, but I'm assuming a building of this nature is going to be celebrated. So that's something we're going to look for. So here's my final thought, and it's tough to deliver this because you've gone a long way on a concept, but my biggest concern, again, is going back to the urban fabric and the context of the university. The south side of the property is abutting a service area for an adjacent building. And you've chosen to create balconies and overlooks on the south side. And then on the north side, it abuts what I said earlier, the Siskovich project, which is a large residential. And I'm just wondering what generated the thought pattern to create the parking structure on the north side and the football building on the south side, when it's almost, in my opinion, it would almost make more sense to invert that and put the football function on the north side, where it relates to the students and activities, and the parking structure on the south side that kind of more relates to the service functions that are abutting contextually. So that's just a food for thought.
That's a big one.
It's a big one. I know it's a big one, and I
Want to engage you, but we're gonna.
no, I don't want to go there here, but I failed to say that in one of the prior meetings, and I've held back, but I can't hold back. I gotta say it. So I'm just putting it on the table. You guys take it from there, and that's all I've got.
All right, thank you. John, parking?
Nothing. Good morning, Dina Bell Llewellyn, Assistant Director of Public Works for Green Space Management. I'll talk about landscape architecture. I really mirror what Juan said. The architecture is really dynamic. I can't help but appreciate those two interlocking U's in the facade, right? University of Miami U's. Okay, so very basic. The University of Miami knows how to do really nice landscapes around buildings, beautiful campus. I know you'll do a wonderful landscape plan for us to review. Existing conditions, I believe, is a parking lot with some existing trees. So we'll look for a tree disposition and mitigation plan, number one. Tree protection plan, if there are any trees to protect. When you're designing your landscape plan, make sure that you meet the street tree requirements. We're going to look for shade trees along pedestrian corridors outside at an average spacing of 35 feet on center throughout the street. So make sure that's met. And we want shade trees, not palm trees. Make sure you have all the proper tree infrastructure below pavements. Where you have trees, we're going to require you to have at a minimum structural soils for small and medium-sized trees. Large-sized trees like live oaks or mahoganies, you're going to have silvacells below pavements so that the roots have space to grow and not pop up pavements. You'll appreciate that for maintenance later on. Then the last thing is what finish for elevation are you raised up to?
So we're at 11.55.
Okay. And the waterway is down at,
The waterways, the street is at about 8, and the waterway is probably in the range of 3 or 4.
okay. So you've got a 7-foot drop on the back side between the terraces and the water, more or less 6 or 7.
The parking lot today along the canal is around 8. So then the water is sitting maybe 4 feet below that.
Okay, so when you're designing the landscape plan, make sure that you don't have water run off directly to the waterway. And make sure there's some kind of stepping or retaining elements that keep the water to filtrate through the landscape area and avoid the water runoff. Plant materials, make sure you use more native or adaptive species that don't have high fertilization requirements because we don't want fertilizer running down into the water. Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Paul Rodas from Public Works, Permit Section. So very few comments. An amended sewer agreement required based on proposed additional flows. Submit the proposed sewer flows through the CSS system under Public Works Sewer Agreement. That's very important because there's some projects that are going forward and they're trying to get TCOs and they haven't pursued this. So they get to the point that they get their permit approved, they construct, and then you're at a point that there's additional flows coming in and there's no agreement to, so we cannot issue the TCO. So with your team, please coordinate that early on. We have some comments from Traffic and Sustainability. Provide a trip generation letter. Since it's you are replacing a surface parking lot, but you're putting substantially more parking. Please provide that letter and they'll make a determination if a traffic impact study is required. From Sanitation, you'll see in the CSS system a list of different calculations, so you can have an idea of what kind of scheduling programming you can have for the waste and recycling pickups. But now there's this additional comment here that's very important. The dumpster enclosures that you have are not clearly accessible. And this is not a Public Works comment, it's just a note to the kitchen or any other activity areas. So you may want to think that through as you do, but that's as far as how you want your building to function. Now, what is functional to our sanitation department is the enclosures that are shown on the outside are proposed within a paver sidewalk area beyond a curb. That's a service problem, because if you have that, they have to be rolled out to the vehicle as it waits within that turnaround area, and you have a curb that you're going to have to work with. You also need a 14-foot vertical clearance where rolling waste management containers are involved. So you also have, it looks like you have a service area also that you may have an intention to, I was looking at A101.
Let me go to that drawing.
Right, it looks like you have another, it's shown there as a loading dock area. So I don't know if you have any intention, oh, there it is. I can see it saying recycling there. So you have the intent that you're gonna have waste pickup there, but you have smaller rolling dumpsters also at another portion right there at your roundabout outside.
Where?
There, that looks like it.
These are elevators.
My mistake.
No, all of the trash collection is here.
That's good.
It's in, yeah.
That simplifies life. I'm going to delete the portion regarding the pavers and the curb because you don't have that issue. But please look over the calculations, make sure you have the vertical clearance necessary, and that you're also coordinating with the sanitation department. We have a specialist from waste management that works closely with us, and he is very insightful and can help you determine different possibilities. Instead of going to massage your building, you may have other options that you can use. But it would be good to have that conversation early as well.
Yeah, thank you.
The last comment is just very general. Comments are provided are preliminary, as are the plans submitted. More comments may apply. We don't foresee much because you're within private roads, within private property. But whatever we're doing at this point is more to be helpful. The big stopping point would be the part about the sewer flows.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Zoning, Araceli?
Hi, good morning. Arceli Rudila, zoning administrator. So in your zoning data, can you please include where the location of this project with regards to the sub areas? Like I know it's in campus core area, so if you can add that into the table.
Sure.
And then for the purpose of calculating the height, can you also include the distance from San Amaro to the building?
Sure.
And then also in the zoning data, can you also include the green building certification path that this project's intended to achieve?
Okay.
And then you are also required to do EV parking. I don't see that. So there's a minimum of 5% EV ready, and then 15% and 20%. I can give you the table,
Okay.
which will be provided later on the app. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
To start, Warren?
Morning, Warren Adams, Preservation Officer. This new project is very close to Pentland House, which is a historic structure. However, I believe the new theatre building is going to separate the historic structure from this proposed one. So I don't see any additional negative impact onto the historic structure.
Thank you. Manny?
No questions. So we had a conversation before the meeting and he answered my question.
Okay. And I think we have fire. I think we have Robert Nance on Zoom.
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wow, there's a first. My only comment is, where's my fire truck accessibility to the buildings behind it? All the accessibility is now being taken away from this because of this building. So we don't have to answer it now. It's a future conversation, but it needs to be looked at.
Thank you.
You're not. All right, thank you. I think that concludes all of staff's comments. I'm missing anybody to speak up. As far as the process goes, you'll incorporate these comments, address them as, what's appropriate, and then you'll submit for Board of Architects review.
Great.
And at that point, they will approve with conditions or deny or whatever they want to do, and then you move forward to permitting. Okay,
Great.
thank you.